Stage 1. The man who's drowning without touching water. You're 38 years old, sitting alone at your kitchen table at 2 in the morning. The house has gone completely silent. Your wife is asleep one floor up. Your daughter is asleep down the hallway, 8 years old, still insisting on that hall light staying lit. Spread out in front of you, the bills. Red stamped warnings. Final notice letters. A pile of envelopes you gave up opening weeks back. You run a small construction outfit. Really, is more honest now. These days it runs you. One contract that collapsed. A client who vanished without paying. A loan you signed with the house itself as collateral. The numbers refuse to balance. They haven't balanced in over a year. What you owe has outgrown what you'll ever earn. Another letter came from the bank. 60 days until foreclosure. Your wife has no idea how deep this actually goes. You've been feeding her smaller lies for months, and they've been growing bigger by the week. We're managing. We'll be fine. The lies get harder to say convincingly every time. You find yourself staring at your life insurance policy. For $100,000. It's sat forgotten in a drawer for years, purchased the year your daughter was born. The responsible move, the fatherly move. You never gave it a second thought until tonight. Tonight you're looking at it differently. A dead man owes nothing to anybody. A dead man is worth $400,000 to whoever he leaves behind. The thought slides in quietly, uninvited. It doesn't even register as a decision, more like a door creaking open in a wall you'd have sworn was solid concrete. You tell yourself this is madness. You tell yourself you'd never actually do it. You climb the stairs to bed and lie there wide awake all night. The thought is still waiting for you in the morning. It returns the following night too, a little heavier each time, until it has real weight, a shape you can nearly close your hand around. You start doing the one thing you swore you'd never do. You start planning it out. Stage 2. The architect. A plan like this needs research, and research leaves fingerprints. You already understand you can't run any of these searches from your own computer. Search history is the very first thing investigators pull the moment a man vanishes. So you drive across town to the public library and sit down at a terminal in the corner. You discover there's an actual term for what you're contemplating, pseudocide, staging your own death. People have been doing this for hundreds of years. Some chase the insurance payout, like you. Some are fleeing debt they can never climb out of. Some are escaping a marriage, a crime, or simply the person they've become. You start reading about the ones who got caught. You study every mistake they made, because that's the entire game here. You learn nothing from the men who pulled it off successfully, since nobody ever hears their stories. You learn everything from the failures. The most common mistake is greed. The guy who fakes his death and then personally files the claim. The guy whose widow buys a brand new car a month later. Insurance companies won't cut a check like that without digging first. They bring in their own investigators. They go looking for a body. No body means no death certificate gets issued. No death certificate means the payout never comes. That's the first puzzle you need to solve. You need to die convincingly enough that nobody doubts it, without ever leaving a corpse behind. Water solves both halves of that problem at once. Water takes men and doesn't give them back. Drownings where the body is never recovered happen constantly. A boat trip gone wrong. A swimmer caught by a current stronger than expected. You already live near the coast. You already own a small boat. The pieces of a plan start assembling themselves in your head, and the marina staff already know your face. The second common mistake is staying too close afterward. Guys who fake their death and hide out one town over. Guys who show up at their own funeral to watch from a distance. Guys who dial their wife from a payphone because they can't stand not hearing her voice one more time. Every single one of them gets caught eventually. You'll have to disappear completely, not partially, completely, and far. The third mistake is botching the new identity. You can't simply invent a name out of thin air. It needs paperwork behind it. A birth certificate, a social security number, a background that holds up under scrutiny. You read about men who've pulled this off before, borrowing the identities of people who died young and whose records were never formally closed. Every bit of it is illegal. At this point, you've stopped caring. You fill a spiral notebook with everything you're learning and hide it beneath a loose board in the garage floor. You're not just a desperate man anymore. You're a man with an actual plan. And somehow that scares you more than the debt ever did. Stage 3. The set builder. Now comes the harder part, engineering the death itself. You give yourself 6 weeks to prepare. In the meantime, you act completely ordinary. which turns out to be the hardest performance of your life. You eat breakfast with your daughter every single morning. You help her muddle through homework. You kiss your wife goodbye at the door each day, quietly memorizing all of it, though you never say a word about why. Your wife absolutely cannot know any of this. If she knows, she becomes an accomplice. If she knows, investigators will eventually break her down. She's a genuinely good woman, and good, honest people are terrible liars. So you land on the hardest decision of all. She has to believe it completely, same as everyone else. Your own wife will stand over an empty coffin and grieve with real, unfiltered tears. You tell yourself it's actually a gift to her. She gets the payout to dig herself out of the wreckage you created. She gets a clean restart, unburdened by a husband who failed her. She gets a dead hero instead of a living disappointment. Some moments, you almost buy your own story completely. You start staging the scene weeks ahead of time. You take the boat out every single weekend, building a pattern people will remember later without thinking twice. Neighbors watch you load your gear and pull away. The marina logs each trip in the record book. You're writing the story before you'll ever need to tell it to anyone. You quietly gather the small supplies, a prepaid phone bought with cash, spending only amounts too small to raise flags. A duffel bag stashed in a rented storage unit under a name that's almost, but not quite, your own. Inside that bag sits an entirely separate life, clothes a different man might wear, cash folded and banded, and the first set of forged documents you managed to buy. You drive 4 hours to get them, hand a stranger cash in a parking lot, and neither of you asks the other's name. You pick your date with care. A Saturday in October. The water will run cold enough to be lethal. The current past the breakwater will be vicious that time of year. A man who goes under out there doesn't come back up. That's what everyone will believe without question. You leave no note behind. A note is evidence. A note gets analyzed under a microscope. You'll simply motor out one morning and never return. The night before, you tuck your daughter into bed and read her 2 stories instead of the usual one. She asks why she's getting the extra one tonight. Because I love you, you tell her. She's asleep before you finish the second book. You sit in the dark afterward and nearly abandon the whole plan right there. You almost let it collapse, but the envelopes are still stacked in that drawer, and the door in the wall is still standing open. Morning comes, and you head for the water. Stage 4. The Vanishing Act. You take the boat out just after sunrise, when the marina sits nearly empty. You wave to the old-timer who's always posted there. He waves back without a second thought, a wave he'll recall later and describe to investigators as completely unremarkable. Exactly the impression you needed to leave. You motor past the breakwater and keep going until land disappears behind you. You've rehearsed this sequence 100 times in your head. You drop anchor. You leave your wallet sitting on the seat, your phone beside it, your jacket folded neatly across the rail, your shoes lined up in a tidy row. It reads exactly like a man who went overboard by accident. You leave the engine idling and a fishing line trailing in the water. The scene has to tell its own story once you're gone. Then you slip quietly over the side into a raft you hid there the night before, and you paddle hard toward a deserted stretch of shoreline a few miles down the coast. Your legs shake the whole way. The water is every bit as brutal as you feared. You drag the raft up onto the sand, deflate it, and bury it deep in the dunes. You walk the final mile to the storage unit completely alone. You unlock the door and step into becoming someone else. New clothes that don't quite sit right yet. A new name you murmur under your breath to test it. A car registered to plates that trace back to no one. You drive off with no fixed destination in mind. You don't look back once. You keep the radio off all day, unwilling to hear a news bulletin about a missing boater. By nightfall, you're 300 miles gone. You pay cash for a motel room and lie on the bed staring at the ceiling. Somewhere behind you, the Coast Guard is dragging the water. Somewhere behind you, a deputy is knocking on your front door. Somewhere behind you, your wife opens that door, and confusion curdles into fear, and fear curdles into grief. You did that to her. You put that exact expression on her face with your own 2 hands. Your daughter is being told, right now, that her father is gone. You will never watch her cry over it. You will never be there to hold her through it. You wanted this enough to spend 6 weeks constructing it piece by piece. Now that it's real, it doesn't feel anything like freedom. It feels like drowning while your lungs are still completely full of air. The man you used to be is dead. You killed him yourself, out past the breakwater. Now you have to become somebody else entirely, and you have absolutely no idea how. Stage 5. The Reborn. You settle in a city where not a single face knows yours, somewhere crowded enough to absorb one more anonymous stranger without notice. You choose a name and rehearse saying it out loud, repeating it in the mirror until it stops sounding like a lie in your own mouth. You now have a fabricated birthday to remember, a hometown you've never once visited, an entire backstory for a life you never actually lived. You drill it into memory the way your daughter used to drill her spelling words. You can't afford to hesitate when a stranger asks who you are. Hesitation is exactly how men in your position get caught. You rent a room from a landlord who doesn't ask questions, paying cash again, the way everything has to work now. Always cash, always in amounts too small to attract attention. You pick up work that pays under the table, manual labor that requires no paperwork, construction. Of all the bitterly ironic things, the one honest skill you carried over from your old life. You keep your head down. You don't make friends, because friends ask questions out of simple kindness, and every question is a fresh chance to slip and expose yourself. You learn to exist small in every possible way. No bank account under your real name. No credit card leaving a paper trail behind you. No license that could get run through any database. You become a man built entirely out of paper and cash. You watch the local news for weeks straight. Finally, one evening, there it is, a short piece buried in the local section. A local man presumed drowned. The search called off after 9 days. No body ever recovered. There's a photograph beside the article, your old face, wearing your old easy smile. It's a strange thing, reading about your own death. It's stranger still, feeling something like relief while you read it. It worked. Every part of the story landed exactly as intended. In a few months, your wife will file the insurance claim. She'll receive the money this whole scheme was built to give her. She'll clear the debts that were crushing both of you. She'll finally be free of the wreckage you left behind. You tell yourself this is the whole point of everything you did. You tell yourself you're a good man who did one terrible thing. Some nights you nearly believe that completely. Other nights you don't believe a word of it. You have an entirely new life now. It's completely hollow, but it's yours alone. You've been reborn into it. Nobody warns you what the bill for that rebirth actually looks like until it arrives. Stage 6. The Watcher. You can't stay away, and deep down you already knew you'd try. Every man who does this tries eventually. You told yourself you'd be the exception. You are not the exception. You need to know they're okay, so you become careful about exactly how you check. You never call. You never write a single word to them directly. Instead, you watch from whatever distance the internet allows. You build an anonymous account with no history attached to it. You find your wife's social media page and scroll through everything she's posted. She cut her hair short after the funeral. She looks worn out in every single photo. She looks older than the woman you left behind on that boat. There's a fundraiser page circulating with your name at the top. Strangers donating money to bury a man who isn't actually dead. You spot your daughter in one image. She's 9 now, holding a balloon at some other kid's birthday party. She isn't smiling in the picture. You memorize every detail of her face all over again. You come back to that single photo dozens of times a week. This is the cruelest part of everything you built. You can see them, but you can never touch them. You've become a ghost haunting your own family through a glowing screen. You learn the insurance company paid out the claim. For $100,000, exactly as planned. Your wife cleared the mortgage. She kept the house. Your daughter still sleeps in the same room. Hall light still burning. That should feel like proof it was all worth it. It doesn't, because you learn one more thing that same night. The company sent an investigator out before they cut the check. Someone whose entire job is confirming that dead men are actually dead. There's a name attached to your file now. He re-interviewed the old man at the marina. He sat down with your grieving wife. He's asking why no body ever turned up. He's asking pointed questions about your debts. He's asking every single question you prayed nobody ever would. You close the laptop slowly. Your hands have gone ice cold. You thought the danger ended the day that newspaper article ran. It didn't end at all. It's only just beginning. Some deadone out there doesn't believe you're, and he happens to be very good at his job. Stage 7. The Hunted. The investigator has a name, and against every instinct telling you not to, you look it up. His firm specializes in insurance claims that don't add up. Fake deaths are practically his specialty. He's caught men exactly like you before, men who believe the ocean could hide anything forever. He doesn't buy for a second that you drowned. He believes you walked away on your own 2 feet, and now he's patiently working to prove it. You can feel him closing in from hundreds of miles away, even though nothing has actually happened. He's patient. You are not. You start spotting patterns everywhere you look. A car parked too long on your block, a stranger asking your landlord probing questions about you. You can't tell anymore what's real and what fear is painting onto an empty canvas. That's what this kind of life does to a man. It turns every stranger into a possible threat. You stop frequenting the same coffee shop each morning. You vary your walk to work. You cut your hair differently. You move rooms clear across the city. You're running from a man you've never once laid eyes on. You read about how men in your position usually get caught, and it's never some dramatic reveal. It's always some tiny slip instead. A man signs his old name out of pure muscle memory. A man gets a speeding ticket, and his fingerprints match a man who's supposedly deceased. A man calls his mother on her birthday because he simply can't stop himself. The investigator is patient, waiting for exactly that kind of small slip. He knows you'll hand it to him eventually. Everyone does, in the end. You tell yourself you won't be any different. So you draft yourself a strict set of rules. You will never contact a single soul from your old life. You will never let anything connect the 2 men you've been. You live like a monk built entirely out of fear. Then one night, your daughter posts something of her own. She's 10 now. She writes that she misses her dad every single day. She writes that she keeps his photo right next to her bed. She writes that she knows he's watching over her from somewhere above. You reread those words 40 times in a row. The urge to reply becomes an actual physical ache in your chest. Your fingers hover over the keyboard, shaking. One message. One single line telling her the truth. She'd know instantly that you're alive. So would the man hunting you. You shut the laptop and shove it away. You bury your face in your hands. You don't send it. This is the actual cost of what you did. You're only now beginning to understand the full size of that bill. Stage 8. The tempted. Years slip by the way years always do. You're 43 now. At some point the investigator went quiet. Maybe he finally closed your file. Maybe the payout was too modest to keep chasing forever. Or maybe he's simply waiting for you to slip up. You'll never know which for certain. And that uncertainty becomes a prison all its own. You live inside it every single day. You've cobbled together a stable enough life by this point. A steady job. A small apartment furnished with the bare minimum. A routine that carries you through the weeks without much thought. You've even made one careful friend. A coworker who doesn't pry too deep. He believes your name is real. He believes your invented history actually happened to you. He has no idea he's befriended a man who's officially dead. The isolation is what actually breaks men in your situation. And it's been breaking you slowly, a little more with each passing year. You haven't spoken to a single person who knows the real you in 4 straight years. You can't so much as mention your daughter to anyone. You can't say out loud that you were ever somebody's father. You can't even properly grieve the life you chose to walk away from. You carry the entire weight of it completely alone. Then your wife does something you never planned for. She starts seeing someone new. The photos start appearing one by one. A man with his arm around her shoulders. A man laughing at your old kitchen table. A man teaching your daughter to ride a bike in your old driveway. A rage rises up in you that catches even you off guard. You have absolutely no right to feel it. You're supposed to be dead. You gave up your seat at that table yourself, knowing that changes nothing about how it feels. You start seriously considering going back. The thought returns exactly like it did on that first sleepless night. What if you just showed up at the front door? What if you sat them down and told them the truth? What if, somehow, they found a way to forgive you? You even drive toward your old hometown one weekend. You get within an hour of the place. You sit in a parking lot for 3 straight hours before finally turning the car around, because there's no version of this where you walk back in alive and stay a free man. Insurance fraud. Faking your own death. Abandoning your own child. You'd just be trading one prison for a different one with actual bars. So you drive back to your empty apartment in silence. You let another man raise your daughter in the space you left behind. This is the closest you've ever come to breaking. You don't give in. But holding that line costs you everything you have left. Stage 9. The exile. You finally accept, fully and completely, that you can never go back. Not someday once things cool down. Not once the old debts are ancient history. Not even once your daughter is fully grown. Never, under any circumstance. There's no expiration date on the life you walked out on. The second you resurface anywhere, the questions start immediately. Where have you been all this time? Why did you disappear the way you did? Who was the man you became out there? Every possible answer amounts to a confession. So you finally make yourself accept the truth. This is exile in the fullest sense of the word, not a country left behind, but an entire life you can never step back into. You're 48 now, officially dead for a full decade. The man you used to be would be solidly middle-aged today, gray starting to creep into his beard. You look in the mirror, and there it is, that same gray. A stranger stares back at you, wearing your eyes. You've become frighteningly skilled at being nobody. You've now lived longer under the fake name than you ever lived under the real one. Sometimes you catch yourself forgetting your own original name for a second. That terrifies you far more than the investigator ever did. You don't want to lose that man completely. He's the last piece you have left of who you actually were. Your daughter graduated high school this past spring. You know because you're still watching from the shadows, still saw every photo she posted. She wore a blue cap and gown. She's beautiful in a way that steals your breath. She looks so much like your own mother now. She's headed off to study something you don't fully understand. She got there without a single day of your help. She got there because of the money your death provided. You tell yourself that's your fingerprint left somewhere on her life. A dead man quietly covering her tuition in full. It's the only gift left you can give her, and she'll never know where it actually came from. Your wife remarried last year. You watched the ceremony through a stranger's photos posted online. She wore white and stood in a garden. She looked genuinely happy in every single frame. Happier, if you're being honest with yourself, than you ever managed to make her. You gave her far more tears than smiles across your whole marriage. That's the hardest thing of all to admit to yourself. Your death may well have been the best thing that ever happened to your family. Leaving gave them a better life than staying ever would have. And in exchange, you handed yourself a sentence with no possible release date. Stage 10. The Ghost. You're 52 now. You've been dead for 14 years. Longer than you were ever a husband. Longer than you were ever a father. The man who once sat at that kitchen table has become nothing but a story now, a name carved into an empty headstone. You visited that grave once. You stood in the quiet cemetery and read your own name off the stone. Beloved husband and father, it reads. Someone still leaves fresh flowers there regularly. You don't know who. You didn't stick around long enough to find out. A man can't linger at his own grave without somebody eventually noticing. You live alone now, in a small town where nobody knows the first thing about you. You hold a quiet job and do it well. You rent a small room that holds almost nothing. You carry a false name that's become more real to you than your true one ever was. You've gotten good at being no one. It just took years to get this good. The debts that started this entire chain of events were paid off more than a decade ago. You could have found another way out, and you understand that now with painful clarity. Bankruptcy was an option. A second job was an option. A hard, humbling climb back up from nothing was an option. Any single one of them would have beaten this. Your daughter is 22 now. She graduated college this past spring. You weren't there. You couldn't be there. You watched a shaky video someone posted online and wept alone in a dark room. She has no idea you're alive and breathing somewhere. She believes she scattered your ashes into the sea years ago. She wears a small locket with your old photo folded inside it. She talks to you sometimes. She once wrote online, whenever she needs advice. She's talking to a dead man sitting in a rented room 3 states away who's desperate to answer back. In your worst hours, you wonder what would have happened if you'd simply opened those envelopes. If you'd woken your wife that first terrible night and told her the whole truth. Failure heals with enough time. This never does. This just keeps going and going. You're a ghost. Not the kind that rattles chains and haunts old houses. The kind that only haunts himself. You didn't die that cold morning out on the water. You did something far worse than dying. You buried the one man your family actually loved and kept the rest of him hostage forever. You'll carry that weight until the day you genuinely die. And when that day finally comes, there won't be a funeral waiting for you. There already was one, a long time ago. Nobody will cry over you. They already did all their crying. You'll simply stop, quietly, in some rented room, and the world outside won't even notice. It'll be a second death for a man who threw his one and only life into the sea. Somewhere out there right now, another man is sitting at his own kitchen table at 2 in the morning. The bills are stacked in front of him under the lamplight. The house is silent. His family is asleep upstairs. He's staring at a life insurance policy, running numbers that refuse to add up. A door is creaking open in a wall he always believed was solid. He's telling himself he'd never actually do it. He's telling himself the whole idea is insane. He has no idea what it truly costs to become a ghost. He has no idea that the debt waiting for him will dwarf the one he's currently running from. But he'll learn every inch of it eventually. They always do. The cycle continues.